Hey everybody, welcome to JazzWatch. Yours truly, the Watchman here, Greg Bryant. It's been a while, but glad to be back in the saddle. You can follow us at twitter.com/gbjazzwatch, youtube.com/gbjazzwatch, that's facebook.com as well /jazzwatch, and our mother site jazzwatch.wordpress.com. Episode 5 right now with yours truly, the Watchman. Thanks for checking us out on your traveling device, if you're at home or if you're on the road, wherever you may be, jogging, maybe even. We appreciate you for stopping in and downloading us. Want to kick off this episode of the show by apologizing and saying I'm sorry it's taken this long to get back with you. Have had some great comments, different reflections. When are you going to get back at it, man? I really enjoyed listening to several of your shows and so forth. And I appreciate you guys for your well wishes and your concerns. It's been a real busy 2013. Lots of peaks, some valleys, but it's been a really a communal thing, and that's really what I want to emphasize. One of the hip things I feel about this music, improvised music, is it is based around such a community. And maybe that's what makes this thing so hard for me to do. There's not often anyone to bounce things off on, and maybe in the coming weeks I'll bring in, a partner to rap with and whatnot. But it's akin to being at a barbershop, a black barbershop. If you know anything about that experience, cats, sitting around talking trash, information being shared, new perspectives being laid out. But it's a communal thing, and that's what got me into jazz, even before all this, cyber stuff and podcasts and things. Even with radio, cats would call you. I'm a former radio broadcaster, did it for like 15 years or so. Cats would call me up after I played a record, and it was like, hey man, what was the name of so-and-so and this and that? I really enjoyed that Les McCann you just played, or that brand new Mark Turner record was really on fire, man. So it's kind of a different headspace that I'm having to get into in doing these things. But, hopefully some of the information and topics of discussion that we talk about, you can get back to me on. If you've got any ideas about topics or anything for the show, feel free. Again, you can hit me in a couple of different places: facebook.com/jazzwatch, youtube.com/gbjazzwatch, and twitter.com/gbjazzwatch. Give me a shout. Let me know what you're thinking. I know just a couple of days ago, via NPR, a great broadcast with Peter Bernstein, Larry Goldings, and Bill Stewart. Man, they rocked the house. They were recently at the Village Vanguard, and one of the early sets was actually broadcast. And man, I tell you, those guys, they are something else, man. They are really on fire. I saw some of the leading press that came out before the broadcast, and one of the things that described the band I kind of had a bit of a problem with is something to the effect of, though they're not necessarily cutting edge or not necessarily new, I mean, what's going on with this? This is something that seems to be recurring again and again. Here's one camp that jazz, is swinging. It's in the groove. It's got to have a swinging rhythm, and there's nothing new under the sun. And all you young Turks need to go and learn about tradition and all this. And we're trying to play odd meter and odd times and do things that we've never heard before. So you need to take note. And then on the other hand, there's this thing of, it's just kind of a weird thing, and maybe I'm getting them crossed up, but there's one camp that's pro tradition, there's one that's pro innovation, and I think we got to start landing somewhere in the middle. How can we dismiss a group like Peter Bernstein, Larry Goldings, and Bill Stewart as not fresh, not new, not innovative. At the same time, somebody like Robert Glasper, who, is doing his own job at presenting improvised music to people who would not otherwise encounter it. Why do we slam him and saying he's not jazz enough? I mean, there's got to land some kind of middle ground in this thing. And you see examples of things historically and in the present that are palpable for more audiences to enjoy. And I guess I'd like to see in general more things that would be, I guess, palpable and memorable, that adhere to the tradition while at the same time forge ahead in new ways, new compositions. Historically, a beautiful example I'm thinking of is Miles Davis's Nefertiti. You've got some seriously creative, burning, swinging going on. You also have serious attention to detail and to melody. So much so that in some of the pieces, as most of you are aware, there isn't any frontline or horn improvisation after the head. They just play the head a gazillion times. The rhythm section comments along the way, and then they're on to the next song. I mean, why can't we have some things like that in this day and age? Maybe cats need to reinvestigate some Nefertiti principles. But again, that has been done. So hats off to folks like Glasper and Esperanza who are, forging into the different markets. You got to go after the R&B kids and let them know that, hey, Brandy can sound amazing again, hence examining, her track with Glasper on Black Radio 2. I mean, that's the best Brandy sounded to me in several years, but that's more so taking it to the streets, going over into the other genres and saying, hey, this improvisational perspective can count also to what you're doing. So I know I'm ranting and I know I'm raving a little bit, but trying to get the dialogue started. Again, if you have reflections or something you want to say in rebuttal to me or in support of me, I'd love to hear it. Once again, twitter.com/gbjazzwatch, facebook.com/jazzwatch. Let me know what you think about the current state of affairs, tradition versus innovation, and just in general, cats categorizing things upon category. When can we get back to just some singable, memorable tunes, with some interesting rhythm? Yeah, it can tip, but it doesn't have to tip. Where is the creative medium between bridging all of these gaps into something that's palpable for seasoned listeners, but also can, turn on cats to some different sounds who are not aware yet of improvisational music? Here's an alternate take, an alternate version of Pinocchio, Wayne Shorter's Pinocchio, played by the Miles Davis Quintet. This was recorded during the Nefertiti sessions, and if you're ultra new, not really having much regard for the tradition, maybe this is a little bit, sleepy for you, but I don't think so. I think this is definitely some forward-thinking attitudes for the time. It was recorded in 1967 originally, but I definitely would like to hear some more cats mine the fact of writing, a strong melody and exploiting that for all that it is. It's a great way to provide contour or contrast in a set of music, be it live or on a CD. But anyway, the classic second edition of the Miles Davis Quintet, Miles on trumpet, Herbie Hancock on piano, Wayne Shorter, the composer, on tenor, Ron Carter bass, Tony Williams drums. Pinocchio, an alternate version from Nefertiti. Welcome back to Jazz Watch. We appreciate you for stopping in. Yours truly, the Watchman over the microphone, Greg Bryant here. As we mentioned at the top, you can reach out to us at facebook.com/jazzwatch. Our mother site, as we like to call it, is jazzwatch.wordpress.com. You can also tweet us at twitter.com/gbjazzwatch, and we're on YouTube as well. That's youtube.com/gbjazzwatch. Time now to move on to some recommendations. Kind of sort of a little glimpse into what I've been listening to personally. I guess one of the pluses in doing podcasts and things like this is the ability and the freedom to editorialize. I don't have to come straight down the middle. Although my training was as a journalist, that is a freedom in this. I can kind of say, pretty much what I've been checking out, urge you to do it. You can, or you can completely ignore it, or you can check it out, whatever you like to do. One thing that's come across my desk very recently is a new boxed set on the late, great Donny Hathaway. And before you get up in arms, Donny Hathaway was a genius. No two ways about it. His harmonic sense, the clarity of his voice, his growth as an arranger over his career, and his soulful piano playing, I would say put him square in the category of being a serious improvisational musician. Now, that may be stretching it for some, and I understand that. That's okay. But from where I come from and how I was brought up and the way I listen, Donny Hathaway is one of those musicians that definitely fits in along the sides of, geniuses like Herbie Hancock in his generation, Stevie Wonder, of course, several others who contributed improvisationally to their particular cup of tea or batch of brew. Donny, of course, known primarily in the rhythm and blues world of his time, which was the 70s, is the subject of a new boxed set, and it's got a bit of controversy going. Because apparently the record company did not notify the family and seek their final approval to have this out, and that brings up another maybe can of worms, if you will, that we'll talk about maybe on another show. The hope and the future of the record business in general. A lot of funny stuff going down, has been for quite some time. But if for anything else, if not for only one thing, this box set is historically significant. For on disc number 3, never before publicly issued alternate versions of tunes from Donny Hathaway Live, the now classic 1971 Atco Records release, is available on this set. And it piques the curiosity of quite a few. Those just now finding out about Donny. What was he like live? What was he like in performance, in concert? A couple of years ago, longer than that even, maybe around 2005, there was a single disc compilation, These Songs for You Live. Honestly, I felt that it was a mistake. They only issued half of the original album. Some unreleased material made it onto there that was quite good, but the original recording, not only historically significant, but had a unity of thought and has now legendary solos and passages that have been emulated by musicians inside and outside of improvisational music for years now. So this is one I would definitely say look into, whether you buy it, whether you're not. If your conscience is pricked one way or the other, I totally understand. But some of the music on this disc 3 is quite fantastic. Textbook lesson on how to set a groove and stick to it. Fred White, 19-year-old drummer at the time, was a part of Donny's ensemble. He is laying the groundwork for some serious grooving. Doesn't get quite the credit I think that he deserved, being the rock steady drummer on this. The great Willie Weeks, bass player, known for his solo on Voices Inside or Everything is Everything, that classic cut. We hear a different take on that tune on this box, as well as extended versions of Donnie's hit The Ghetto, and a very stellar attempt at What's Going On, an alternate version, all of these alternate versions that we've never before heard. Donnie himself is in fine fashion. Of course, the group completed by Earl DeRowan, conga player and percussionist, and the guitar duo of Cornell Dupree and Mike Howard. But Donnie is at his absolute finest throughout the set. Several unreleased studio sides, a few demos as well, in addition to a long-form suite that Donnie did after taking some courses with the great Yusef Lateef. Recorded after his 1973 tour, Donnie went into the studio and wrote an amazing classical long-form piece, the Zydeji Concerto. I may not be pronouncing that right, but check this out. Like I said, whichever way you decide to land with it, it's definitely a piece worthy of historical and significance. Donny Hathaway's new box set, Never My Love.
Talking about love is heathen. Hey, hey, you make me fall in love with you. I don't know just what to do. Don't you know you made me fall in love with you? I don't know what to do, no.
Donny Hathaway on JazzWatch from Never My Love, a new 4-disc anthology out now. We're still in the recommendations category here. Moving to something brand new. This one out just about a month and a half or so. Lots of folks are talking about it, and we believe that it's a good deal that they are. Vocalist Gregory Porter. Brand new CD on Blue Note called Liquid Spirit. Maybe you've seen the videos on YouTube for the title track or the follow-up single now, Hey Laura. But this guy has basically taken the jazz world and soul world by storm in his own way. Very, very unique in his presentation. His instrumentation, largely acoustic. Satisfying, of course, the seasoned jazz fans, but his grooves are quite infectious, and they're definitely catchable. You may have seen him recently on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, or on Tavis Smiley's evening show. He's been making the rounds, and it's good, I believe, for the music to have someone as vibrant and as brilliant a songwriter as this gentleman is, Gregory Porter. The cool thing about him is he works with his longtime band. They've been together for at least 4 or 5 years or so, definitely across the span of now 3 albums. The first one, Water. The second one, Grammy-nominated Be Good. And now Liquid Spirit for Blue Note Records. Gregory Porter doing his thing. A very, very unique take on jazz vocals, male jazz vocals. Again, I mentioned earlier, I think the cat is a brilliant songwriter. He's got some great tunes, some of them possibly that could even be covered or reimagined instrumentally. But they're strong, and he's doing the work, I feel, to pull folks in to this music called jazz that may be on the outskirts. Folks that say, well, it's too wild, it's too so-and-so, I can't understand, it's too many notes. Well, it's straight down the pike, the grooves are infectious, and his voice is very distinct, memorable, and passionate all at the same time. So let's check out a tune from Liquid Spirit. Gregory Porter on JazzWatch. Here's his take on the tune Lonesome Lover.
Oh, lonesome me, why can't you see? Let bygones be. Take me back where I belong. Don't be I've been waiting, love, I'm agitating. Take me back where I belong.
And welcome back to Jazz Watch. Yours truly, the Watchman, here with you, Greg Bryant. You can follow us and leave comments about anything that we've done so far. You love it, you hate it, we want to hear about it. YouTube.com/GBJazzWatch. Reach out to us on Facebook at Facebook.com/JazzWatch. Also, our mother site, JazzWatch.wordpress.com. Check us there, tweet us, or follow us on Twitter, Twitter.com/GBJazzWatch. To close out episode 5, or edition 5, if you're counting, here's an interview that I had with the great drummer Brian Blade, brilliant drummer and composer, the leader of the Fellowship Project. They had a momentous tour this year, and they're going to close it out in a special performance, a week-long set live at the Village Vanguard in New York. That's going to be the week of December 12th. If you're up that way, you'll want to check that out. The Fellowship Band featuring drummer and composer Brian Blade. You know his resume, you know his sounds. If you don't, check him out now in this sit-down I had with him just before he began his North American tour a few months ago. And kind of being from the South myself, and the son of a minister also, that word fellowship definitely was bandied about quite a bit as I was growing up. And I'm curious as to why you chose the title for the ensemble in the beginning.
Well, I suppose it's very much like your upbringing as well, in a church community, around folks who believed in this ideal of fellowship and this coming together as Christian brothers and sisters, but then the choice to make it the band name for me took on not only that fundamental meaning, but also the great inclusion of anyone that would share with us and our music on the road and through the recorded music. It really it's meant to project this idea of inclusion and not exclusion. So for me, the evolution of the band, I guess like most bands, it comes from this mutual love of music, but also these friendships that are born. Meeting John Coward when I moved to New Orleans in 1988, unknowingly, was the beginning of the Fellowship Band. And our bond and him as a great inspiration to me as a not just as a human being, but as a songwriter and pianist and musician. It gave me that confidence to try and write what I was hearing as well. So it really comes from that seed, that meeting of John and then Chris Thomas a year later.
For sure. And it's very interesting. You mentioned writing what you heard. I don't know whether I read it or someone hipped me to it, but there were a few people that told me, well, Brian writes a lot of his compositions on the guitar. Is that true? Tell us about your relationship to that instrument.
Yeah. Yes, I do write on the guitar. Primarily, I think over our few records, there's one piece of music that I actually wrote at the piano, exclusive, called Alpha and Omega. But I think writing at the guitar, it gave me that that median of expression, because I never really had a connection with the piano. But it was because of another friend whom I met in New Orleans named Daniel Lanois, someone who I had already admired and been inspired by before meeting him, unknowingly, through records that he had produced and his own music. And being around him more and more, and the guitar and his virtuosity and gift, it gave me that sort of doorway to discover that instrument and then try and make it a part of me. So in the process, these songs started to come as I began to play the guitar. So and I specifically was hearing the Fellowship Band, Myron Walden and Melvin Butler, and of course John and Chris's voices as I began to write. It really gave me a I guess, for lack of a better description, a deeper connection to not just notes on the page, but to these people who would play the notes, and express something somewhat dormant on paper, and then give it life.
For sure. Another thing that I have often admired about this group is that sometimes in the scape of so-called modern improvisational music, jazz or what have you, people tend to label that as being more of a boys' club, quote unquote. But you've seemed to mix and freely examine both the masculine and the feminine sides of this music. And I'm wondering, is your relationship to the many wonderful vocalists you've worked with, Liz Wright, Joni Mitchell, and the like, inspiration for this, or how do you conceptualize this?
Well, it's interesting the way you put that. The balance of femininity and masculinity, these the qualities of humanity, really. Joni Mitchell is one of my greatest inspirations. She just, ever since I was given 2 cassettes when I started to drive at age 16, Hejira and Mingus.
Oh, wow.
And when I heard those records, it was first unlike anything that I had heard up to that point in my life. Primarily the gospel and R&B of my generation. Well, that includes the Jacksons and Earth, Wind and Fire and Stevie Wonder. So it's really beyond category, those artists. But Al Green and the Staple Singers and Albertina Walker, James Cleveland, Walker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I heard Joni and what she was telling in her music, and how she told it poetically and harmonically, the way she brought that together, it still inspires me, and over the years gets deeper and deeper to hear those stories unfold and how they strike across my life. So, one of the greatest honors and privileges for me so far has been to not only know her music and feel this great gift, but to also be able to thank her personally and make music with her over the years. So she kind of comes into my experience, obviously, and comes out in the music of the Fellowship Band and of the Mama Rosa music as well. So And it's, you know, it's just been a real blessing for me to play with so many of my heroes like Emmylou Harris and Bob Dylan and Seal, you know, these songwriters, conduits for something so whole and so far-reaching. I try and bring that to the fellowship band with the music that that comes to me and my position as drummer in the band as well.
Certainly. How hard is it to stay out there, Brian, in these changing times economically?
Well, I suppose it's always a challenge. You know, you wonder. You know, there's thankfully the invitations that come, but there's also the friendships that you know, or the people that are in your corner that want to help, like my friend Tim, who's made contact with you. You know, without him, you know, this wouldn't be possible because he has stood in the gap, so to speak. You know, there's the, you know, it's sort of an abstract place where, okay, you make your record and the record's out and you don't know necessarily who it's reaching. You know, we aren't sort of a million record selling artist yet. So there's that personal contact that happens in the living moment when we are able to play live for people and people come up and say hello, and you know you've hopefully you've reached someone right then and there. So we just try and do as much as we can. The challenge of it, of making tours make sense, you know, and feasible. That's something that we just we try and find a balance with as best we can, and hopefully someday we'll be able to have a year's worth of dates in front of us, and everyone will know where we're going to be and what we're going to do. But at this point, you know, I'm just thankful to be able to play as much as we can.